It all started way back. Such a long, long time back. Way back in the days when the grass was still green.
This is easily one of the most remembered specials of the entire lot, and it's no question whatsoever why this is. The Lorax is among Dr. Seuss's most famous and most biting stories, tackling the rise of consumerism and its huge negative impacts on the environment. How just an average man, even one with a smart eye for business, can find himself causing the downfall of an entire civilization.
Grickle grass, somebody lifted the Lorax away.
So to have a book that actually did cause pretty significant controversy at the time, and have it brought over to a new medium less than a year later, was a really freaking daring move. Probably the riskiest of all these specials, in fact, with one possible exception we'll get to later. And not only does this cartoon do the poetry of the book justice, but I'd actually say it's the definitive version of the story. There's much more emphasis on atmosphere thanks to the backdrops and sound design, which, as you'd expect, makes the story hit so much harder on all fronts.
And the clouds were still clean, and the song of the Swami Swans rang out in space.
The actual animation may not be all there, but the art direction most definitely is. From a colorful luscious forest to a gray, smoggy dystopia, the contrast on display across the runtime is incredibly moving.
Please pardon my cough.
In addition, this is another story where a lot needed to be added to fill the runtime. And unlike The Grinch, which resorted to slapstick and montages, which granted worked really well there, what they added here actively adds more meat to the story, strengthening the general message and even sprinkling in some new ones that feel very welcome and thematically relevant indeed.
Well, what do you want? I should shut down my factory? Fire 100,000 workers? Is that good economics? Is that sound for the country?
I see your point, but I wouldn't know the answer.
In particular, this iteration is great at showing the progression of events. They devote a lot of time specifically to showing how many individual decisions disturb the ecosystem bit by bit, and yet no one seems to bat an eye at any of the many red flags that pop up. And no matter how much the Lorax may look like a preachy mouthpiece, he's clearly only trying to look out for what's best for the Earth, no matter how much it falls on deaf ears. It's not against industrialism or anything like that, more so the speed and capitalistic nature of it all.
They say I'm old-fashioned and live in the past, but sometimes I think progress progresses too fast.
And nowhere is this more true than with the old Once-ler himself. There's never any doubt that he's the cause of everything that goes down. But unlike the book where he is very stuck in his ways until his empire comes crumbling down, they give him more moments where he doubts if he's really doing the right thing, but snaps right back for one reason or another.
You speak for the trees. Well, I speak for men and human opportunities.
Special mention to this musical moment where he argues with himself pretty literally, and has a very brief moment of conscience, only to tell himself,
But if I didn't do them, then someone else would.
And that's apparently enough to justify what he does. It makes him more human and identifiable for the common business person. We know he's wrong to think this, but it's so easy to think that just because you have success in the love of the public, you can do practically no wrong, which of course makes the end result sting all the more. He sounds generally upset once it's said on how much damage he has caused, all for a little short-term profit.
They jumped into their cars and drove away under smoke-smothered stars.
Incidentally, I should point out that both our leads are voiced by rising voice actor Bob Holt, a fact I never would have guessed had I not looked this up for myself. The two interact a lot in this story, so that should tell you all about just how impressively seamless it was.
Mister, I am the Lorax. I speak for the...
Forget it. I don't really need the stump.
The songs here? Hoo boy, there are a lot of them. You've got the playful nature song,
Under the trees, happy dappy barbaloots. Under the trees, in our barbaloot suits.
you've got the hokey Once-ler family song,
Don't waste your time talking, turn left and we hawking to the house of the glorious Once-ler we go.
You've got the upbeat, overselling commercial song.
It's a natural, it's a must.
Eliminates carburetor rust.
Everybody do need a pee.
Each of the animals get a reprieve upon their respective departures.
Just fish out of water on hot, dry land.
And that's not even a complete list. Admittedly, I tend to remember them more for how they're used than the actual lyrics, but they're still pretty hummable, especially once you listen to them a few times. And while a few of them can feel a tad superfluous, it does help add some levity without undermining the cynical tone.
Trap, trap. Trap, trap. Dogo, dogo.
That said, it's the instrumental soundtrack that really stood out for me, always getting the mood exactly right and adding a ton of energy to fast and slow scenes alike. Dean Elliott was quite the underrated talent, and I have to give special mention to the ending piece that starts at the special's single most dour note during the immortal unless statement.
Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not.
But then once the seed enters the picture, it starts to swell up and convey to the audience some much needed hope that not all is lost, and sure, it will take some effort, but god damn it, it can and must be done. Which, yes, is the perfect note to end the story on altogether. It's the kind of ambiguity that elevates the message to a whole new level of power, and is easily a huge part of why it stood the test of time even after half a century. You didn't need more over-the-top corporate satire or the kid having to confront a corrupt higher power. It's just a sign of inspiration and an indicator that anyone of any age exposed to the story can and should make a difference for the better. It instills a certain trust in whoever is watching, and I love that. So on the whole, the Lorax 1972 is an absolute must-watch in my opinion, and probably one of the best specials of the batch. It's dark, it's topical, it's only held truer with time, and above all else, it's proof that a little poetical social satire is really what everyone needs.